Hey, this is Mike here with Monkey Fab Garage. Wanted to make a video to show how to put together one of my T6 Borg Warner flange kits. So I sell these fabricators kits on my webpage, and they're a pretty reasonable deal. 60 bucks for the stainless steels and 40 bucks for the mild steels. So what I have here is a few of my mild steel kits in front of me, and I just wanted to go over them quickly. Today we're going to focus on the Borg Warner T6 and how I put it together. So if you're buying one of these kits, you probably already have the skill sets needed, but I figured I'd just make a video, show a few of the little cheats that I do and how to put this together strongly and quickly. So here goes. But first, let's go over these flange kits, and I'll be hopefully making a video on each one to follow. So this is what we're looking at today, and it's the Borg Warner T6, and this is what you get in the kit. I have two different ones of these. There is the one for 2.25, which is just 2.25 pipe or tube, and the end of it's flared out, so it will fit right in that slot to be welded up. And the other is the 2.25. The ends has been swagged a little bit, so you can see here it kind of has a flare to it. Well, that flares out, so here's a 2.25. I'm sorry, 2.5 inch pipe, and you'll see that just butt welds right to that. So that's how I make that, and it still has a form on the end, so it just drops down into the flange and is ready to be welded. So we also offer the T4, and basically the same kit. What I have with me today is the open flange, or the undivided flange T4, and this is how you get it in the kits. So you basically get the pipes, they've already been cut, so when you weld them together, you see you're going to get a nice meet up, nice fit there. So once you get that welded together, all that has to be done is you just cut it at the base of that and then smash it in a vise, and it'll fit directly on top of that flange. And that's the 2.5 right there, the 2.5 inch, and this is the 2.25. It's just the same thing as a Borg Warner. It's just not, the ends aren't flared, and it's the same thing. You get the really nice fit up for TIG welding it together, and then once it's done, you just throw it in the clamp, cut it flat right there, and then just smash it, and it'll drop right down. Okay, so we're focusing on the Borg Warner T6 with the 2.25 inch pipes, or 16 gauge tube. Actually, this is all mild still right here. Like I said, I do sell this in stainless, so it's up to you. So here's basically how it's set to fit. Is I just drop one side in, and the other one's going to meet right on the lip right there. Now you could give it a little bit of a squeeze, and it would just drop right in there. But I really don't like that, just because it makes it too vertical, and it's really hard to get down in between there. So by dropping it in, I get this kind of nice V. It's enough angle that I can get in there with the tungsten and weld that up, no problem, and just make a nice weld bead all the way around. So I'll show you how to do that. So what it's going to look like finished, and how it lines up is this will drop down in here, actually into the hole, and that's going to line up right on the edge of that divide. So you'll see it meets up really well in there, and there's actually a little bit of a gap on this outside on the Borg Warners, and that 16 gauge tubing is just going to take up that little gap and just funnel that the exhaust gases right into the turbo. So there's a couple things that go along with this. So when you get the kit, and it's just like this. It's been formed, and the forms drop in, and that's great, and that saves you a lot of time. If you've ever smashed one of these, monkeyed around with it in a vise, you know that it takes quite a bit of time. But it's not perfect, and I'm going to show you how I finish this off and get it together. So you'll notice there's a slight contour here, and that just comes from forming the tubes. What I like to do is I also like to work this up a little bit. So I'm going to take and just maybe flatten this out about another ½ inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch up. And that's what that's going to do, is give me a little more ability to reach in there with the tungsten and make that pass. But hey, I'm kind of a novice welder, and if you're that's not a problem for you. You can get in the tight spaces, and you're experienced with that. There's plenty of space in there. I just like it to have a little more space. So I'm going to go ahead and flatten that out, and I'll show you how I do that. And then what I'm going to do is on the one side that sits on that center divider, I'm just going to flatten it out too. So I get a nice flush fit, and my fit up is just right against the flange, and I'm just going to run a bead around it. Okay, so this is how I flatten out my pipes a little bit more. I just got a nice piece of a ½ inch stainless steel bar stock that I use. I throw this up. I put the seam in, so it's just, I don't know that it really makes that much of a difference. Maybe a little bit of aesthetic difference, but just my thing. So I'll throw that in there, just tighten it down just a little bit. So I just set that in the vise, put the bar in there, I grab a brass hammer, and like I said, I just move it up maybe another 3/4 of an inch. And that's what that looks like. So it just gives me a little more room to work with. And I'll do the same with this one. That's it. So just a couple seconds, a couple whacks with the old brass hammer or whatever hammer you got, and you got yourself a little more room to work with on those guys when you reach in there with the tungsten. All right, next, see if you can see that. You cannot see that. So see that we got that a little bit of raised area there where that form's been made. It's just stretched out. So what I want is when I drop it down into the flare, I want it to be flat, just to make for a better fit up. So real quick, I just take a straight edge, doesn't matter what it is, just a little piece of 20 gauge stainless steel I have laying around, and I just lay it across the top of that hump there, and just make a line with the old Sharpie, just like that. So it's kind of hard to see, but just put a line there at the very bottom, and I know I'm just going to grind that flat here on the grinder in 1 second. So the important thing to do is make sure you're getting the right side. So I went ahead and flattened out the one side that it's going to be on the inside. So I need to also grind that area and not the opposite side, which it really wouldn't make a difference if you did, but it's just going to be recessed and kind of just a waste of time to do that part. So if you mess it up, not a big deal, just flip it over to the other side. And here goes the grinder. I'm going to grab my face shield. Okay, and we're just going to grind off that. I'm just going to grind off the black area there so it's flat. All right, so see there we got a pretty good fit. Kind of brings it right down to the base, which I want. What I want. You'll see it hits up kind of right there in the corners. So I'm just going to notch that out just a tad. And I'll do the other one exactly the same, so you don't have to suffer through watching that. Okay, so I did those real quick, and it only took me less than a couple minutes. And my fit is nice on either side. So I'll have nice fit up. Always makes better joints. Whenever you do that, of course, it's going to leave a bunch of metal in there where it's just kind of heated up and ground over. Just take a die grinder real quick. Sorry about the air compressor, but so whenever I'm banging away on stuff and messing with it, I just want to clean it up before we start welding. So I'm just going to take and run a quick little sander around it. Alright, and along the lines of welding shiny bright metal, like we cleaned up the ends of the tubes, I'm just going to go ahead and clean up the flange to make sure when we go to weld, we're welding shiny bright metal. So I just use the, I like these bristle pads. This is a green one. I think it's like 60 grit, but I could be wrong. It's one I like, but this works. Stainless steel wire brush, flappy discs, just make sure that they're relatively clean. You ain't been out there grinding on oil, rust, and all the other stuff. But this one I just use for mild steel, and then I have one that I use for stainless steel to keep them separated. And those bristle pads leave a little bit of residue on it. It looks a little green. I don't know if you can see that on the camera or not, but just give it a quick once over with the air. I'm gonna wipe everything down with acetone before I weld it anyway, but that just knocks off the loose dust. And hey, you know what? Now we're ready to weld this together. So we got the our forms ready and our flange ready. So now we just gotta talk about what we do to weld this up.